Hey guys, Tom here. I decided to put together a video on getting started with Python and the Strat and how you can use Python to do some simple market analysis and convert candles into Strat candles. This may be part of a longer series of videos that I'll do. I'm not sure yet, but some people have been asking how to get started, what books I've read, what resources I've used. So I just put together a very simple demo that will hopefully help you get the ball rolling. So the first thing you need to do is pull up my GitHub. It's up here at the top, github.com/tlk3. And if you go to my repositories, you'll see the Strat Trading Bot. I'll also link to this directly. So here's the URL. You're going to want to copy the URL, then clone it in your IDE, which I've already done. And then you're going to want to pip install requirements. All right, and I've already done that. So next I'm going to open up main.py, and if we take a look at this file, you'll see I'm importing yfinance, pandas, enum, and a library that I wrote here. It's in this file called the strat.py, which has a single function, and it converts a data frame of market data from Yahoo Finance into a data frame that identifies Strat candles. So we'll go through this code real quick. I'll explain how it works, and then you can explore. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm setting some options for pandas. And the reason I'm doing that is by default, if I were to run this, you'll see that these data frames that are being output are cutting off columns, right? We have the open, we have the high, we don't have the low, the close. We have some other columns here that are defined, but we can't see the entire data frame. So if I uncomment these options and run again, you will see now I've got open, high, low, close, volume, dividends, stock splits. So they're just set some basic configuration options for data frame display. The next section here defines some time frames with intervals and periods. I will get into that in a little bit. I've got another function that just queries symbol data from Yahoo Finance and returns it. And then this main function, which just has a loops through time frames and a list of symbols, retrieves the data, adds the Strat candle types to the data frame, and then outputs it and also exports to a CSV. The next thing I want to talk about is this time frame class. You could do this a couple different ways. I used an enum here, and if we look at the documentation, it is basically just a collection of name value pairs. They give you an example of an enumeration where you have a class of color, and then you define some values, red, blue, green, and you can access them using the class name, just like you would use any access any class value. Let me show you where this is used. If we go down here to time frame, I'm iterating for time frame in time frame, and when I access the time frame class, I can iterate over this list. So if I copy and paste this over here and type for TF in time frame, whoops, not typing very well today, print TF. I can do TF.name and TF.value. Now I'm assigning these values as tuples, and the reason is because if we look where I'm using time frame, okay, and fetch symbol data, I'm passing a symbol and I'm passing a time frame, and then I'm taking the time frame value, which is this tuple, and I'm unpacking it into a period and an interval. If you're familiar with tuple unpacking, it should be pretty self-explanatory. If you're not, Google it. Then I'm using Yahoo Finance to create a ticker instance, and you can pull up the docs here and see what kinds of information you can query. We can look at dividends, capital gains, splits, actions, any information, upgrades, downgrades. There's a lot of functionality included, but specifically we're going to look at this dot history, and you can see here it is looking for a period and an interval, and that's what I'm defining up here. So if we open this, you'll see period. Valid periods are day, 5-day, month, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year. And interval is going to be 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute. So you're going to get an interval over a period. So you'll get a 1 minute interval over a 1 day period, or maybe you want the 15-minute chart over 6 months. Just be aware that if you're using intraday data, that it cannot extend over the past 60 days. So you cannot get 1 minute candles that are older than 60 days. That's why I would recommend using a data provider like Polygon, where you do not have those restrictions. And if you wanted to, you could get intraday data going back much further. You probably don't need it. In fact, I think for most of my code, I am using intraday for the last 2 weeks, roughly. That's like the minimum that I need. And then for the rest, I use the daily time frame to generate the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly, and the yearly. So when I request ticker history here, I'm passing in the period and interval that is defined here. And this is just an easy way for me to say, I want the 15-minute time frame. I only care about it over the last 7 days. I want the 30-minute time frame for the last 7 days, and the 60-minute time frame for the last 7 days. You can adjust these if you want. And then I'm getting 30 days worth of the 4 hour, 5 years of the day, 5 years of the week, 5 years of the month, 5 years of the quarter. When I call fetch data symbol and pass a symbol and a time frame, I don't have to think about the interval and period that Yahoo Finance is looking for. I've defined my own mapping of time frames that will automatically pull the data that I need from Yahoo in a predefined way. So to summarize what's happening in this code, we are creating a function called main. I'm assigning symbols to this. Let's assign it to the list. Iterating over the symbols, so for symbol and symbol, and for time frame in this list of time frames, I want every time frame. So I'm going to fetch the symbol and output the name here, right? So we call fetch symbol data with the symbol and the time frame. We save that as a data frame. We then convert that data frame using strata identification, which I will explain a little bit. I'm printing the head of the data frame, which is the first 5 rows, and then I am saving to a directory called data, and I'm outputting CSVs. And so we can pull those up. We can save these so we don't have to query from Yahoo Finance in the future. You could save these in a database, but you know, the data is here. So if we look at the weekly time frame on Apple, you'll see we've got 2/4, 2/11, 2/18, 2/25. So all the way from 2019 through 2024. Now let's take a look at this function strat identification. So strat identification takes a data frame and returns a data frame. It creates a new column called previous high, and that is the current high, and we shift it by 1. So if you think of a table and you are shifting one of the columns, say down a row, and then saving that to previous high, and I'm doing the same thing with the previous low. So I'm taking the high and shifting 1 and saving as the previous high, and I'm taking the previous low, shifting it, and saving it as previous low. These conditions defining inside, outside, 2 up, and 2 down are called masks. So if you Google pandas data frame masks or use ChatGPT, it's essentially just some conditions that you set, and it returns true or false on a column. And then you can decide whether you want to keep that column or not, or if you want to do something else with it. So here I've defined an inside bar as the current high is less than or equal to the previous high, and the low is greater than or equal to the previous low. That is an inside bar. An outside bar is the high is greater than the previous high and the low is less than the previous low. A 2 up is the high is greater than the previous high, and a 2 down is the low is less than the previous low. I assign these masks to a list called conditions. I create choices for each one of these conditions. So an inside is a 1, an outside is a 3, a 2 up is a 2U, a 2 down is a 2D. And then I create a new column called Strat ID, and I select conditions and the choices. You can Google this NP select statement we can pull it up here, return an array drawn from elements in a choice list depending on conditions. So you might want to Google that. The docs will do a much better job explaining that than I can. And then I'm simply assigning that column as a type category. And you don't necessarily need to do this. It's more efficient for storing string type data. And that's it. It will return the updated modified data frame with the new Strat ID column in here. And if we look at this in action, we'll see I'm going to get all of the data here. We've got fetching Tesla 15-minute data. We've got Tesla 15-minute candles. And if we look over here, we've got this previous high column, previous low column. You can just delete these if you want. And then a Strat ID column. Now you'll notice the very first column is NaN type, which is not a number. NaN stands for not a number. And the reason is because we don't know what this candle is. We don't have the previous candle, so we can't compare the high and the low to figure out what this candle is. So the first candle is always going to be skipped, right? We don't have a previous high or a previous low for this candle. But otherwise, you should get this data output here. You could also, if you wanted to, work with it, copy this code into a console, and then you can do things like query the 15-minute time frame on Tesla and save that as a data frame. In my console here, we can see that this is a 15-minute time frame. I can do things like data frame.resample 30-minute open high low close and drop NA, and this will give me the 30-minute time frame. Now with stocks, on the 60 minutes there's an offset, so if we were to resample on the 60-minute time frame, we're going to get them at the tops of the hour, bottom of the hour, top of the hour, every new flip, instead of with a 30-minute offset. So there is a way to deal with that. I may do that in a follow-up video, because in my project for StratBot and what I do with Stat, I am primarily focused on the 1 minute and daily candles. So that is all the data that I'm requesting, and then I'm creating all of the other time frames myself, either doing it in PostgreSQL with TimescaleDB or resampling data frames. So depending on what you're trying to do, you may find it easier just to resample in Python, which it's very easy to do and it's fast. I think that about covers it for this first video. I just wanted to do a brief introduction. I think my next video will be much better. I'm going to put together an outline and work off of that instead of just winging it, which is what I did this time. But I think my video editing skills are getting better, and hopefully I can continue bringing you guys more content like this. So, all right, if you have any questions, let me know. Talk soon.